morning, and it is a Tuesday. Thank you so much for always keeping it TV47. My name is Linda Lela. Time for Morning Cafe. We take you through the stories of the day, what is making headlines, and we also take a look at a comprehensive approach on the issues that we've touched on, and we have the panelists that expound some more on their thoughts on the same. Pointedly later on, of course, we also have Matters Lifestyle. So we invite you to be part and parcel of this session right from now all the way to 9 a.m. in the morning. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela at TV47K. We have so much lined up for you, so keep it right here as we kick start and straight to news. Emurua Dikir, Member of Parliament, that is Joanna Ngeno, yesterday was arrested by security officers over his recent remarks against President Uhuru Kenyatta, whom he accused of planning to ditch Deputy President William Ruto and opted to support a different candidate. This happens as a section of leaders from Uasin Gishu County Slum Environment CS Keriako Tobiko for disrespecting Deputy President William Ruto. Let's take a look.
Emurua Dikir MP Joanna Ngeno will be forced to spend the night in police cells after his arrest Monday evening. His arrest comes after a viral video of him accusing President Uhuru Kenyatta of planning to dictate the one to replace him come 2022. Meanwhile, the debate over Cabinet Secretary Keriako Tobiko's public spat with a section of political leaders has taken a new twist with recent remarks emanating from DP Ruto supporters who have accused the Environment CS of insubordination. Led by Uasin Gishu Governor Jackson Mandago, the leaders have asked the CS to refrain from politics and focus on delivering services as mandated.
We have not been commenting on these things, but I think there comes a time when the borders are crossed. We must remind Cabinet Secretary, all public servants, that for you to serve as a public servant in this country, there is a code of ethics. And I therefore want to tell the Cabinet Secretary of Environment, Mheshimiwa Tobiko, wewe ni waziri na unajua unafanya kazi chini ya sheria ya Employment Act.
Tumeona juzi mawaziri ambao wanakula kwa sababu ya jasho ya hawa wananchi. Hatukuona wale wako katika nyadhifa ya waziri wenye wamemea pembe wakizunguka kuomba kura kwa serikali ya Jubilee.
Masai Council of Elders from Kajiado County have however come to the defense of Keriako Tobiko, warning DP Ruto's allies led by Senator Kipchumba Murkomen against causing tribal chaos over the Mau Forest evictions. The elders have now called on Deputy President William Ruto to move in and tempt his supporters for disrespecting President Uhuru Kenyatta and the Environment CS.
Kwa hivyo mimi nataka kuambia mdogo ya rais, yeye akikuwa rais atakuwaje yeye mwenyewe akikosoa na mdogo yake. Tulipigia Kenyatta kura, na tulikuwa naona picha yako nyuma yake.
Kwa njia ya Murkomen kutusi mheshimiwa rais, bitterness yake kweli ni ya Mau Forest, na aseme wazi maana hakuna kitu ingine.
Laikipia Women Representative Catherine Waruguru has reiterated her firm support for Deputy President William Ruto come 2022, saying Kenyans will have their way on who will succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta. In a similar tone, a section of MCS allied to Deputy President William Ruto from different counties in Western region have launched a movement that will support Ruto's bid to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta come 2022 in their grassroots. Addressing media Monday, the MCS say democracy will be on trial in the coming polls.
My people, please listen to me. I am serving the government of the day. William Ruto, when his time comes to be the president, I will be after him, backing him, because there is no government that comes in place kwa makosa.
Ni kikundi ambacho kitaenda kwa mama mboga, kitaenda kwa yule mtu ambaye hajapokea habari, ili tuhakikishe kwamba naibu wa rais ambaye ni Bwana Ruto anaenda kuwa rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya.
Eli Logova, TV47.
And the 2022 polls draw nigh, Politicians have started aligning themselves and their political parties, especially those with ambitions to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, in the race to State House, as the president insists that it is not a time for politicking, his deputy has hit the ground running, pulling the masses to his side. Mwangi Maina reports.
The race to State House come 2022 has begun in earnest. Presidential hopefuls to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta are not sparing any moment to sell their agenda to Kenyans. It is a race that has gained momentum fast. Deputy President William Ruto, who is the most conspicuous campaigner 2 years to 2022, apart from Deputy President William Ruto, Raila Odinga is poised to vie in the polls. The three Ukambani political bigwigs, Alfred Mutua, Kivutha Kibwana, and Kalonzo Musyoka, are in the race. Others who have declared interest include Musalia Mudavadi, Gideon Moi, and Murang'a County Governor Mwangi wa Iria. The race to State House is not a walk in the park. Deputy President William Ruto has not once complained of impediments on his race to State House.
The same way they did not succeed then, I want to tell you, they will not succeed now. Blackmail, threats, intimidation. They did not succeed in 2012 against Uhuru Kenyatta and myself. They will not succeed in 2022.
But what new agenda do these candidates have to offer? The manifestos and the promises they have made to Kenyans are the same ones promised by the various previous regimes. ODM leader Raila Odinga clinging his hopes on the handshake and the BBI initiative that is advocating for the change of the constitution. Sunday, Machakos County Governor and Maendeleo Chapchap Party leader Alfred Mutua launched his presidential bid, promising 5 million jobs under 3 years. In the event, he convinces Kenyans that he is the best candidate to replace President Uhuru Kenyatta. Mutua, just like any other candidate, his promises are revolving around job creation and a boost in the economy. It is a narrative well ingrained in the thinking of politicians to woo the electorates.
Alfred Nganga Mutua will vie to be the next president of the Republic of Kenya, so as to return Kenya to the railway tracks of where we were meant to be after independence. I am ready to press that reboot button. I am ready to give Kenya a new, fair, organized, caring, rich country of happy people.
On his part, Makueni Governor Kivutha Kibwana, in an interview with TV47 2 months ago, he says he is heading to Kenyans' calls to have him as their president out of a job well done in Makueni. Kivutha selling the same narrative of a stabilized economy, job creation, and an emphasis in manufacturing. An opinion poll conducted late July by Inter Research Solutions placed Deputy President at the forefront, being the most popular candidate at 30%, Raila Odinga at 17%, Alfred Mutua at 8%, Musalia Mudavadi at 7%, Gideon Moi at 6%, Kalonzo Musyoka at 6%, and Kivutha Kibwana at 2%. Other leaders who have expressed their interest in succeeding President Uhuru Kenyatta are yet to officially launch their bid and make their manifestos known. In a country where politics are about numbers and tribal inclinations, those who have numbers have it. But the question begs, apart from the hustlers' narrative, the we versus them, what else do these politicians have to offer to Kenyans as they gear up to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta? Mwangi Maina, TV47. Nairobi.
From Mwangi Maina's story, a section of senators in the 12-member bipartisan committee selected to resolve the revenue standoff have decried outside forces interfering with the committee. Now, the committee is yet to reach a consensus, as Mumbi Chege reports.
I vote no.
It is a stalemate that has brought services in counties to a standstill. Some members in the committee now lamenting over outside forces interfering with the committee. An informal meeting of senators that was expected to take place on Monday did not happen. Senator Ledama Olekina expressing his disappointment.
I had expected that we were going to have a Kamkunji so that we could share our deliberations with our colleagues, but that has not happened. So tomorrow, I think we continue as business as usual. But the problem that I'm having, the biggest problem I'm having, it seems as if Senate is being controlled from outside. We can no longer make our decisions here. So those ones who are controlling, maybe you should ask them when they want this formula. But as far as I'm concerned, I want it tomorrow, bring it, we vote. Once we vote, those who lose, those who win. If I lose, at least I tried.
Senate Majority Whip Irungu Kangata has said he's hopeful that the report expected to be tabled by the committee will bring a solution and a closure on the matter.
I cannot really speculate the kind of report that will be brought by the mediation committee. I think it is quite unfair for me to do so. The best case scenario is to wait for the report tomorrow, and then we'll make a determination as to whether the recommendations are final and proper or they are not.
Kangata is now proposing for the disbursement of 50% of the revenue allocation to counties before the matter is fully resolved, sentiments that have been echoed by Senator Samson Cherargei, who also gave a stern warning to outside interference of the Senate. But the Senate must first pass the Public Finance and Management Bill to allow Treasury release the funds.
With all due respect to my counterparts in the executive, the CSA attorney, I am not persuaded by his position that the government does not have a legal framework to disburse money to the counties, notwithstanding CARA has not passed. I made a reference to Regulation 134 of PFM Act regulations, which clearly, in express terms, allows 50% of last year's budget to be released to the counties.
What I can say to those who are blanks, they were blanks that do not exist when they allege that they are intimidating and threatening Senate to be dissolved. I found that as something that is a wishful thinking. I think Council of Governors should concentrate on more other issues, on issues of accountability. We have seen governors continue to be arrested for corruption allegations. They should even remove the money they are stealing to run counties if the counties will need to come to crowning hall. So they should be careful with what they say. Senate has been the protector of devolution under Article 96.
Senate is expected to have a formal sitting for the 10th time on Tuesday to deliberate on the final report by the committee. Mombi Chege, TV47.
Now, the country recorded 102 cases of COVID-19 as of yesterday's address, raising the national caseload to 35,205. And this is the lowest number of course, new infections in days, an indication that the curve could be flattening soon. Let's take a look at that.
September, the 9th month of the year and 179th day into the COVID-19 pandemic in Kenya. The country opened the month with 0 COVID-19 deaths and 114 cases. Over the last few weeks, the number of positive cases has been dropping significantly, with the lowest being 83, which was recorded on Sunday. The trend, according to the Ministry of Health, inspiring confidence that the curve could be flattening despite slow testing capacity due to lack of reagents. September 1st, 114 cases. September 2nd, 178 cases. September 3rd, 1,212 cases. September 4th, 179 cases. September 5th, 136 cases. September 6th, 83 cases. And September 7th, 102 cases. Although the low positive cases have been attributed to a backlog at the public testing facilities occasioned by scarcity of reagents, politicians and members of the public have already started letting down the guard.
Reporting in the trajectory and trend in a more broader light, in the light also of comparing it with what's happening in other places and other like places like ours in other countries within sub-Saharan Africa. And generally, what comforts us is that at least that trajectory seems to parallel what is happening in some of these other countries.
Over the weekend, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga visited Kakamega County to seek support for BBI amendments, and he mingled with the country's grassroots leaders who cared less about the COVID-19 guidelines. Raila too did not put on a mask the entire time of the meeting.
Mambo ya katiba peke yake, lakini mambo mengi zaidi. Kwa hivyo BBI sio tu constitutional amendment. BBI ni kuangalia mambo mengi zaidi. Hawa Waluhya wanaishi namna gani? Haya yote tunataka kuangalia katika hii BBI.
Deputy President William Ruto has also been on a political meeting spree. He has been traversing different parts of the country, meeting with politicians, clergy and youth groups in full disregard of the COVID-19 guidelines. The Deputy President, an adamant worshipper, has also been holding church meetings at his current residence and his Sugoi home, contrary to the Ministry of Health rules on public gathering.
Ukoloni mamboleo, ati watu wenye mamlaka fulani wanajaribu kushurutisha na kulazimisha kanisa ati mutafanya hii.
In his 10th COVID-19 address to the nation, President Uhuru Kenyatta ordered for the arrest of leaders who will flout the guidelines, strictly directing the National Police Service to enforce the rules. Nonetheless, the rules are being broken in full glare of the police.
That forthwith, the Inspector General of Police shall ensure that his officers spare no mheshimiwa, no individual, irregardless of social status or rank, who is either out after curfew without being an essential worker, or who flaunts the health protocols that have been set out.
Another in which the public threw caution to the wind is the Malinya bullfighting contest on Saturday. A wild crowd thronged the annual bullfighting event in Malinya Stadium in Kakamega County in full disregard of the COVID-19 guidelines. These other private political meetings are putting the country at risk of falling back to a spike in the number of COVID-19 cases. Whether the curve is falling or not, the threat of more infections is rife.
Now, to our other sad story, 3 people have died after they plunged into an underground water reservoir at Ngoingwa Estate of Thika, Kiambu County. The 3 middle-aged men are reported to have been pumping water from the deep reservoir, estimated to be over 90 feet, when they met their death. The incident happened at a 6-storied Nyathira Square apartment, and from whose reservoir residents draw water for domestic use. According to witnesses, one of the deceased persons, a water supplier in the area, died while maintaining an underground pump to facilitate smooth pumping of water. The man, who was only identified as Kamau, is reported to have run out of oxygen when he died. His 2 colleagues, who attempted to pull him out of the slippery well, also fell in, sealing their fate until the time of going on air. Now, firefighters from Kiambu County and police officers from Thika Police Station had retrieved 2 of the bodies as of yesterday, that is.
Ambapo mimi sikuona hiyo mwili ya 3. Nimejaribu kuangalia na kusearch na tool moja yetu tunaita anchor hook, lakini siku manage kuipata hiyo mwili, but tunashuku kama hiyo mwili iko, tunapeananga masaa 72 ili hiyo mwili iweze kuja juu. So tunaambia wenyeji wakuwe tu wapole, sisi tutawasaidia baada ya hiyo masaa 72.
Hao watu walikuwa na maintain, walikuwa wanatengeneza hiyo kisima kwa sababu inakuanga na maji ile ambao inatumiangwa pale. So what happened basically is that mmoja katika wale watu 3 alijaribu kuteleza, akaingia pale ndani, alafu wale wawili wakawa wanajaribu kumsaidia kumuokoa. Bahati mbaya hata wao pia wakateleza na wakaingia ndani. Ndio saa hii tumekuja hapa polisi na watu ya fire and rescue team from Kiambu County.
Now, the tourism sector, the backbone of the coastal economy, is reeling from the ravages of COVID-19, with hotel owners saying the sector could take up to 10 years to recover. Mariam Mochari reports from the coast.
The tourism sector is the backbone of the coastal region from Lamu County, Kilifi, Mombasa, all the way to Kwale. But since the coronavirus pandemic, the tourism sector has greatly been affected, bringing down the coastal economy. The sandy beaches of the Indian Ocean, a place of serenity and beauty that attracts both local and international tourists from all over the globe. But since the outbreak of the novel coronavirus, the tourism sector has taken a dive in the coastal region.
Pirates tulivunjiwa bila kupewa taarifa na mali zetu zilienda na maji kwa sababu kuvunjwa na hatukuokoa hata kitu kimoja. Kwa ufupi hatuna lolote la kuanzia wala hatujui hata kama ni kubadilisha tutaboresha vipi. Na utalii hakuna. Je, hata kama ni kuendekeza utalii tutaufanya vipi na bila watalii wenyewe kuja?
But what lessons can be taken from this pandemic?
The ability to be flexible. Flexible to change, flexible to understand the varying needs of the community at different times. That way we will be able to provide the same services but in a different perspective. So that flexibility is what is critical in our continuing sustenance.
And what changes are expected to cushion the tourism sector for the future?
The first and foremost change that we expect is an increased awareness on hygiene. So it has improved our awareness and consciousness to take the hygiene issue to another level.
Although the curve seems to be flattening and life is slowly returning back to normal, the tourism sector at the coast is nursing a deep scar, and some hotel owners say that it could take more than 10 years for things to return to normalcy. As Fort Jesus prepares to open its doors to welcome back tourists by adhering to the Ministry of Health protocols for COVID-19, like washing hands, sanitizing, and maintaining a social distance of not less than 1.5 meters, employees near the hotels at the beach have nothing but complaints. For TV47, I am Mariam Wacharo.
And on that note, it's time now that we cross over to a different segment altogether as we take a look at the news stories on the newspaper after this short break. And, well, shoti yangu iko na giza. All right, and time for that segment where we take a look at the newspaper stories of the day. And to take me through that is Eric Regalo and Frank Anyona. And then to help me expound some more and put some sense into these stories that have been captured in the newspaper, more or less the same stories across the key newspapers, that is the Standard, the Daily Nation, and the People Daily. And I think we're here. Good morning, Daktari. How are you? You well? Well, right. I'm fond of calling you that. And yes, good to have you this morning. Anyona, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Linda.
You well?
Say hi to the Daktari there.
All right.
It was a good competitor, I think, in Kiambu County.
Oh, yeah. That's where you hail from?
He contested for the parliamentary seat, I think, for Ruiru.
Yes, see, Eric, you're well known.
I know Anyona very well.
Oh, yeah?
How are you? Hey.
Fine, thank you, Daktari.
Let's do this together, brother.
Thank you.
Asante.
All right, and we'll kickstart this. Automatically, we have the People Daily right here with me. This is a story that comes from way back, of course, in terms of court cases and family. And Udi Geshaga gets note to kick litigant out of Muthaiga home. I don't think, do we need to expound anything on this, really?
That's social life.
That's social life, so really.
That's social life. Whatever they are fighting for is just a disagreement in the family.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have gone to court.
They should have.
And I'm not just being tribal.
Yeah.
I find other communities handle their land issues very well.
Okay.
I've never had so much land issues in Maasai land. I've never had so much land issues in Samburu land. So is Luo and even Luya. Let me say Western region. A lot of land issues in Eastern region, I'm saying region. So much land issues. So they should get back to their family values, that people don't fight for land. Land will be there. You will go and leave the land. And the land you live today, someone lived there years and years back.
All right, well, that's an interesting view.
Remember, archaeology tells us we've been billion years old in this world. We've been humans.
Yes.
As much as the world is billion years old. So how many generations have passed through where you step today?
Very many.
Very many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They came, they left it.
And
so there's no point of view.
For others. Even 1,000 and billion years to come, someone will live where I will be buried.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, and there you go. That woman who had appealed an arbitration order to vacate property, but the court ruled the home and other establishments were not part of her matrimonial endowments. And yes, that I think we leave it aside. We come to these crucial issues that are of importance to the common mwananchi. Another big story, why Uhuru won't abandon me. And despite strained relationship with his boss, the deputy president, that is William Ruto, claims that President Uhuru will back his 2022 State House bid because of their long-term friendship. Also, the same captured on the Standard newspaper on the front page, and say other members of parliament say that President will not support the DP, the likes of Ngunjiri Wambogo, who are strong allies of President Uhuru Kenyatta. They say Ruto has become the source of political divisions in the country. That's a very story also. Like I said, on the front page of the Standard newspaper, we'll take a look at that as we proceed. But coming to you, Frank Anyona, you know, the politics of the day keep shaping up. And while we say we do not need campaigns, we do not need to talk matters politics at this time, it is evident that our politicians are not able to withstand that. What do you say?
You know, it is so difficult actually to say that stop discussing politics. Maybe if we say we tone down, because world over politics is being discussed. Even if you look at the case of first world countries like the United States, I mean, these are people who engage in politics. Politics is a way of life. So I think the only thing that, and I like the deputy president's approach when he says that people should not be using insulting approach or approaches that are going to divide the country further. But to tell people not to politic, remember, politics is a career. There are people who are doing, that is why it's even learned in school anyway. So you can't tell people to cut their livelihood there are very many people who are practicing politics as a career. And even though sometimes we may feel that the politics is taking our country to a wrong direction, we must also look at the positive aspect of it. The policies that have been implemented by political debates, demonstrations like the ones NASA used to have. And I'm surprised that our colleagues in NASA are now castigating those in the deputy president side who could be throwing words to the head of state. It is not something that is new. When Raila Odinga, His Excellency, and I have a lot of respect to the former Prime Minister, when he was in opposition, we saw a lot of legislators from his side insulting the head of state, and sometimes it's normal when you are the head of state. You have to take such things like slightly, because even if you look at somebody like Barack Obama, who is a very sober leader, how many times was he insulted? You shouldn't even be bothered by the comments made by these legislatures out there. The only worry is, will these comments divide our people? If yes, then action should be taken. But if the head of state or people who are surrounding the head of state start arresting people who say anything to the president or criticize him or do anything, I mean, how many will be arrested? These solutions have never worked in any country. The moment you try to put pressure, you realize that people also try to fight back. It has never worked in any country, and I don't know whoever is advising the president. And I think this government has been captured by people who don't wish the best for this country, because we've been enjoying our peace for a very long time, since the handshake, and now you can see the way they want to push some quota into, some divisions that are not really necessary. So regarding politics, I think the deputy president should continue. In fact, is free like any other citizen in this country. I'm free to go to Mandera and speak to people about politics. I mean, this is a free country. Nobody should be. Yes.
All right, let's have Eric looped in. What do you say of this?
We have two people here speaking. Honorable Ruto is saying that he's very sure the president will support him.
Right.
I remember when things were bad in ODM, Raila kept saying ODM is intact, while Ruto was already leaving and everyone could see Ruto going.
Yeah.
Everyone was saying, and some people in Raila's side were saying Raila should release Ruto early. You remember? So this is the same script. Ngunjiri and others are saying that Ruto will not get support from the president.
Yeah.
However, Ruto keeps believing that he'll get support from Uhuru. He has to decide what he wants to be.
But wouldn't you agree with him based on the kind of silence that the president has showcased? Because most of them have argued, why is it that you're not coming in to defend your deputy party? But equally, we have not seen him come, hands down, like literally, to fire shots directly at him. While some of his utterances were
He won't fire any shots to him.
Yeah.
But you will see his friends and his colleagues around him, his cycles, will always fight the deputy. And
don't you think that is just an interpretation of the people who would want to interpret it that way? And probably it's got nothing to do with the say of the president.
The same happens on the Ruto side. The very close people around Ruto fight the president. You know what happened yesterday, where Ngeno and Sudi gave statements that were obviously very ugly. However much politics is as the game it is, there are people you should not even attack in politics. These are laws in politics. Leave the wives or spouses of politicians away from politics, and the close relatives of politicians away from politics. Politics is the players alone. When you drag other people, then it stops being politics. It becomes another story, and that is how politics is drawn. So why would I support the person whose people are already coming to a point of giving abuses even to my mother?
Yeah.
And has my mother spoken ever? I've never heard Mama Ngina speak anything politics. I wasn't born in 1963 rather, but I believe from 1970s, and when I came to know politics in early 90s till today, I've never heard where Mama Ngina has spoken anything political. So why drag her name into politics and nothing political she's ever said? So it's being very, very angry to a point you want to drag somebody. And remember when we were young, these were boys' thing. We would have that kushambuliana, and we would give rules. Hakuna cha mama, hakuna cha mama, meaning the mother part is very, very sacred. That if somebody says cha mama, hapo sasa mtazoeana. Ngumi lazima itatamba because cha mama imekuja. Right now, those are the rules in politics, believe you me, because that is how humans are born. You can do anything to me, but don't touch my kids, my wife, my mother. Those three people. You can call my father there because man will always handle. But so mama is always sacred. So that is really wrong. You can play politics, but don't go to relatives.
All right. Well, okay. That's an interesting view right there. But we also proceed to a different story captured altogether. And that particular story that we've touched on is extensively expounded on page 4 of the People Daily. But away from it, TSC faces sanctions for defying members of parliament order. And there's still so much that is happening within the education sector. And one story also that has been captured on the front page of the Standard newspaper. Let me see whether I can get a hold of that. And here we are. Who is killing Nat? And the beginning of the end. They say Giant Teachers Union loses over 130,000. It's right behind me. 100,000 members and 1 billion in 15 months, paralyzing its operations countrywide. That is after levitating court and street battles with the TSC, captured on page 6. Who would ever imagine that Sosion goes 9, when you talk about NAT, you see Sosion would be reduced to this level? Frank?
I think this is something that was planned a long time ago. Even in the elections, I don't know when the last elections were held, when my good friend John Matiang'i entered as a treasurer in NAT. I think it is something that was planned long ago, and it was a long-term debt. And I think whichever way we look at it, government wants to finish NAT because it has been thorn in the flesh. It has been articulating very critical issues regarding teachers. I don't think there is any other body representing teachers that can articulate issues such nicely. But that is what happens in any government, especially dictatorial regimes. I think the president during the first years in power, I used to think I was proud to have found somebody who's young, and I thought that he's not going to do such practices like the ones people experienced during the time of Moi. So we are seeing institutions being killed, literally, so that the government of the day can pursue its course without any questioning. They have often said that the media should be very careful because the state capture will also come to the media. We've seen it has tried the judiciary. That is even why. And some of these things we have to state them as young people clearly without fear. That is the reason why the president is not even approving or signing the swearing in of the judges, the names whom GSC presented to him. He wants to fix the judiciary. He has tried to fix every institution to suit his interests, which is a very wrong direction we are headed as a country. Yes, even if you look at the Law Society of Kenya, I saw some other body being formed, I think a week ago, and it immediately reflected the image of government trying to divide people, divide institutions that are defending the common person. So right now, any institution that is standing with Mwananchi is likely to be planned for and brought down.
All right, and looping in at that, I don't know whether you're in agreement, there's some level of state capture on the same. But yeah, TSC has been called upon, and actually this story that we had touched on the front page of the People Daily says that the teachers' employer faces impeached wrath over dialogue with NAT, and the members of parliament have called upon a teachers' union to, chart the way forward and meet some proposals in regards to ensuring that they have a conversation with NAT and KUPPET to get some truce and, quell, of course, the long-standing dispute that has been ongoing. But it looks like the Teachers Service Commission was not for that. I mean, just what is playing out in the education sector?
I think
it's not, well, Ragalu, let's have Ragalu come in.
What I could join in and say is that when KUPPET was formed, we had a giant union called TSC, where all teachers were under TSC, from university teachers all the way to kindergarten teachers. When KUPPET came, you can realize we have a body that is taking care of a certain section alone. And that certain section is the one, we're not saying all teachers are leaving, but it is a section of a certain group of teachers that are now leaving. And where are they going? Most definitely, they are going to the other side, joining KUPPET. So you'll always understand in that factor then, you'll understand that most of these are colleges, university, and all these other post-primary teachers joining KUPPET. So we are going to have two bodies. KUPPET used to be very weak because it used to only talk for around 100 or 200 teachers. KUPPET is going to come up strongly to fight the space with NAT. And it's actually NAT losing the battle, reason being they brought politics in NAT. A lot of politics came in NAT. Even the elections were always a warlike elections. You realize Sosion is an MP, and he's still the head of NAT. And I don't understand their rules or their laws in NAT.
So in this case, then, why fight the union itself? And why not fight the leadership? Because again, the fact that he's been a politician has been disputed for a long time, and calls for him to resign from NAT and cross over to this side were rife or were high. Why is it that the battle then is leveled against the union itself as opposed to being leveled against him?
You understand, the leadership of the union is usually the union itself. The leadership of the union is the union itself. So the leadership of Jubilee is actually Jubilee. If Jubilee fails, it's not Jubilee party, it is actually the leadership. You understand? So that's why we say, what is the legacy of Jubilee when Jubilee leaves? So it's the legacy of the president. It's one and the same.
But how much has NAT done towards ensuring that the welfare of the teachers are catered for, to a point whereby, they can easily let go of NAT. They can easily see and watch NAT crumble, while probably it has been very instrumental in shaping their state.
Linda, politics is local. Politics is local. Why I mean, NAT has done so much. I remember in 1997, we had to close school because we had the longest ever strike. We had to go home. And you remember they got what they wanted from President Moi, government then. They have done a lot. But politics being local, remember Sosion was nominated by ODM to Parliament. And by that time, we had NASA side and Jubilee side. And it was a full-blown political war with a lot of emotions entailed. All these politics being local, I would say there are people who feel now ODM has taken over NAT, and some of them left. having a thought that ODM has taken over that. You understand?
Right.
Just like you will see in university, when a student leader takes over and is aligned to a certain party,
yeah.
you understand now Nairobi University leadership of student is under Jubilee, is under ODM.
Yeah.
And that's why when you see universities politicking, you will see they take a certain dimension.
Right.
And this is how organizations also work. They take a certain dimension, and you will see people living in Avalanche because they are feeling now we are ruled by ODM.
Right. Okay.
I wish Sossion left when he was nominated. That
Right.
I have another thing I'm doing. I'm leaving you guys to chart your road. They wouldn't have left. Some wouldn't have left because being a local, some people just leave because of flimsy things.
Right.
Humans are that way. They are very emotional, and they make choices when emotions come.
All right. So, looking at that statement, or just trying to understand that statement some more, what then does it speak about, of course, the picture of ODM in this case? Because we know very well that also during the time of elections, these unions are very instrumental in directing, in shaping up, the political scenario. And we know teachers equally are very instrumental, because with teachers, again, you find that they're able to speak to the locals, the parents down there, and in most cases they're always considered to be very instrumental on what direction the vote will take. So what does it speak about then ODM? Because clearly and evidently we might not run away from the fact that yes, this has some political, alignment.
It will not affect any ODM since we have already a merge between Raila and
the president.
And the president
Okay.
Uhuru. So meaning those people who left feeling that they have been cross-cut to the other side, they'll find themselves in a tangle. Now ODM and Jubilee are working together. So they are still in the same. That's what I'm saying. Politics is more emotional.
Right.
So whoever sways emotions wins the game. And the people who left because of emotions will still find themselves nowhere to run. And what I will tell you, NAT has been losing teachers slowly and slowly. And the minute they started losing their teachers, be sure they come a point where some teachers will be left in NAT, these ones will be left here, and this is where now government will decide who to work with. When we have a teacher strike, the way it used to have, you will find Kupet saying, no, we are going to negotiate. NAT will say we are going to the street, so who will go where?
Yeah. And now
And
then
that is
again,
how teachers will now lose again.
Ooh, all right.
Yes.
It's pretty much unfortunate. Role of the TSC in this case then?
TSC is the employer.
Yes.
Their
And for the longest of time, TSC equally has been seen as though it wants to frustrate the teachers who are in the union. Do you suppose then the pressure got them probably saying, oh, well, let's now exit the stage, or let's exit from the union?
What usually happens, TSC being the employer, you'll find sometime a union going on strike.
Yeah.
And this is the human resource body. Let me call it the human resource body. It checks and understands, okay, we are getting into a strike. What do they want? This is what they want.
Yeah.
Is it possible? Yes, but by this. So when they go to negotiate, you'll find now, since we have two parties, you will find one party negotiating to a certain level, the
Right.
other party stops negotiating and becomes adamant. This is the time now when they become adamant. TSC will find itself working with a party that is able to work with them.
Okay.
You understand?
You
know-
that is where
you know-
these guys are losing it.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, for a moment, Frank thought that we had forgotten his in existence.
Oh.
Frank, we remember that you're there very well. So let's pick this story also that has been captured on the front page of the key papers also. EACC probes governor's money matrix involving family. And we had our very own Lorraine, camping at the EACC grounds, just trying to see whether we can establish anything in terms of this or in regards to this particular case. And so much has been happening. Same story captured on the front page of the Standard newspaper, how governor shared county cash with a family graft, rife by the day. Involvement of family members, and it's like, they have decided, well, they should just revolve around the family. We need to enrich ourselves as family members. Is it always, is it the game, or is it the new norm, or so to speak, if I may borrow some words after COVID-19? I mean, what do you make of this, and And what do you suppose would be an establishment of the same as the governor seeks or awaits to face the court today? Frank?
Really, it's not something new. It's something that is so unfortunate. But before I answer you, I'd like to quote some. I think my brother Ragalo is raising very nice issues.
Right.
But I disagree with him. There's something he mentioned about politics coming into the NAT and KUPPET, especially the NAT. I'd like to tell him that you cannot separate a union with politics. Actually, unions are made out of politics. Any union, if you go to Kotu, even during the colonial times, it is the union which assisted us to gain independence. Now, coming to the issue of families being used to rob our resources, I mean, Linda, it is not something new. You and I have discussed this on television very many times. We've seen governors hiding money or sending public money to their kins directly, and sometimes it keeps us wondering. We sons and daughters of peasants who will also give us such an amount of money. We pay taxes for this country only for such taxes to be enjoyed by the who is who in the society. It is a very unfortunate situation, and I think at some point we just say we leave them to God, because the ESCC, which is supposed to investigate these matters, is doing politics. They will arrest you if you are not aligned to a certain group in politics. If you are aligned to a certain politician, which is well known in this country, you will not be touched. You will not even be pointed a finger. We've seen a lot of corruption cases being defended or protected by the who and who is who in the society, and it doesn't matter. I'll tell you for free. It's not Governor Obado or anybody else who has been written on the papers who transfers money directly to their children. There are very many instances, and I want to shock this country. In fact, what is happening right now, let the ESCC go to counties and investigate the suppliers. What they are doing is that if my governor, for example, let me use an example of Kisii County. The governor of Kisii County has children who would get tenders in Kakamega County. Then you will find the governor of Oparanya. I'm just using an example. I'm not saying that's the reality. But you will find kids of Oparanya now doing supplies in Kisii County. Yet, this is a county that has a lot of youths, a number of youths who are struggling, entrepreneurs who can supply resources to the county, but they are being denied because their parents are not known. It is a very bad culture, and I think the institutions, we can't trust government anymore, but we can trust our institutions. Let the ESCC step up and at least be honest in protecting Kenyans' money. Let the judiciary step up and show seriousness when it comes to prosecution of these cases, and the police, let them be independent. We're even talking about TSC, and I think, Linda, you've raised a very crucial point that shouldn't be ignored. It is TSC that is bringing down NAT, but TSC is being used by the government, which is so unfortunate. TSC is a commission just like JSC, which is supposed to be very independent. But over the years, since President Uhuru Kenyatta's regime, we've seen a lot of institutions being tampered with, and the result of this is that Kenyans do not get the service they require. We have a lot of good brains in these institutions. If you go to the intelligence service, you'll find that the intelligence service has some of the smartest person in this world. But they are being misused to play a political agenda, to fight so and so and do so and so. This is something that is so unfortunate, and if we don't speak about these things on national television, then government will think that we are not brilliant enough to notice that they are taking us for granted.
Well, as we loop in Eric and Muthomi Njuki's day yesterday, quite a lengthy one or quite a long one, looping in also members of the press and, camping at the ESCC grounds just to see whether they can be able to get this upon this grill. What do you make of this in terms of matters corruption and the fact that we have governors day in, day out If they are not appearing before the EACC, they've been summoned, in Parliament, or in the Senate, or, of course, at that level of the House. And the biggest question then is, what is left of devolution if we see this kind of scenario?
Linda, the curtain or what we say, the roof has not opened as yet.
Okay.
If the roof was to open fully, you'll find everyone has done business with his family.
Yes.
There's no one is out of this. We remember some tenders of containers for the Ministry of Health.
Yeah.
And it's not wrong for a family member to do business in any county. It's actually very important and very usual that a family member should do business anyway. It's just like asking me that if I become a president, I cannot nominate my brother to become an ambassador. He can become an ambassador if he has papers that support that position.
Right.
But the problem will be is you'll find cronyism and bringing almost all relatives into doing business with the county. You'll find now other people's tender are not going through just because all the business are done by the family. Now that is wrong. That is very, very wrong. And especially where now, if you're doing business as the father, you are the governor, you are the father. You don't do business with your wife there. You are all children there, and you bring their uncle, their nephews, and their cousins. No, but it doesn't work like that. It should work this way, in a very formal sector. You do business, you're the father. All these guys are down. You can bring an uncle somewhere, and then you're 2 or 3 in the whole county.
Okay.
You're doing business here, but you don't bring a whole lineage of what we call a whole generational home into being a county business. But you find, for example, Raila brother is a member of parliament in East African community. That is not wrong. But it will be wrong now to find Rosemary is here, Nani is here, everyone is there. So who is out? Nobody. That makes the feeling of why them and not us.
Okay.
And that is the story now. Now this is now social, and this is what we are bringing in when we are doing BBI. This is what we call national ethos. And people should understand what ethos means. Ethos means tabia, mwelekeo. What do you think when you're doing this? Do you think it's right? Dhamira yako inakwambia nini? Remember, there's a word I use, dhamira yako inakwambia nini?
Right.
So, if the dhamira of Obado told him doing business with everyone was okay, then according to our ethos, that was wrong.
Right.
If the Dhamira and Njuki tells him doing business with the whole relative is okay, to us it was wrong. And that is now irregular. So now the question comes in, when Njuki is going to court, where is the procurement committee? They should follow him to court. Because all these names follow each other, and they should do due diligence when they are doing what? Tendering. And even the tender documents are usually they have this part that is written, are you relative to any of the person you know around in the county? Yes or no? What did they feel? Did they feel yes? Then after feeling yes, did they show cause who are the relatives in the county? If they feel no, then that is a lie against the public. 2, and if they feel yes, and still the county tendering committee gave them the tender, now the committee also should be in.
Okay, well, interesting there.
And actually, before you take the governor in, start with the procurement, the whole procurement. Unafagia yote wanaingia ndani kwanza, then you come to the governor. I don't know why the governors go in, and then those other guys are left there. Why?
All right, because it's always not very clear. But anyway, on this
let me now tell you, if you hit these other guys, the next group will never do it.
We'll never do the same thing.
So the governor will always be frustrated. Nataka mnipitishie haipiti. Reason wanaogopa kufinywa. Finya hao wote.
I once heard Mheshimiwa Boni Khalwale here, and he says that when he was in government, he chose not to steal. Listen to that statement. I chose not to be a thief.
Yes.
I chose not. So that clearly explains that there's a problem with the structures and the systems, that there are loopholes, that there are openings that, one can confidently have a chance to go and steal. It's just that most of them might decide otherwise. So what does it speak then about, forget the individuals, but the systems and the structures as we get to wind up on this one?
Everyone chooses to steal or not to steal.
Yeah.
We all went to school. There are people who choose to write what? On their thighs, make those papers to steal.
Okay,
there are people who decide not to steal and study. So stealing or not to steal, it is a choice. There are people who are very strict with themselves. They believe in themselves.
Yeah.
There are people who believe I have to use a stone to do something. People who choose to not to steal never get rich, but they get wealthy. Wealthy means they are loved by people, and you understand. People who choose to steal, they make a lot of money, but see them at the end of their time. They drive themselves, they go to hospital themselves, nobody visits them. They have a very bad time at their end.
So China's system, allow me to loop in Frank, and let's hear what he says about this. We all know or are privy to what has been happening in China in terms of, dealing with graft. And while you might even have that choice, like Regalo says, sometimes it is even hard to make that bold move because you know that the repercussions are not as easy as you might think. So in this scenario then, does it mean that we've laid the ground bare for very many people to come and toy and play around in terms of, sealing the loopholes, in terms of ensuring that we have watertight ways of addressing such? Do you suppose then that we need to tighten the noose?
First of all, Linda, my brother Eric is raising. I don't know if this institution, some of the members in DCI watch the morning breakfast shows, such television. They may underrate some of these discussions, but they come with very, 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 very key concerns.
Yeah.
Like the one my friend Eric raised there. Why are these people not coming after the procurement? I mean, it's an underrated statement, but something that's very serious. The fact that you are chasing after the governor only shows that you are only interested in political gimmicks and trying to show the country that you are working. If orders, and the other time I was addressing, I think, here saying that people who are in offices should be very keen with the orders that they receive from whichever authority, be it the governor or any head of the place they are working. Because like Kensa, we had that orders were being made on a phone call. So at the end of it, you realize that the procurement will be in problems. Yet people like Waiguru and the governors, you saw even in the case of NYS, the top cream is not being touched, cannot be taken to jail because there's no evidence.
Yeah.
The point my brother Eric is raising about procurement officers and those junior officers who are in charge of doing these transactions being accounted for is something that I think should be adapted by the DCI. So coming to your, what was your question again, please? I think I dwelt much into the other.
No. My question was that, in as much as maybe we might have, want to fault individuals, but it looks like once you get into some of these offices, we do not have proper structures that, would even limit the thought of one wanting to steal. It looks like it's laid bare. The ground is open and one can go inside there and, there are very many loopholes into getting to bag something and, fleece the taxpayers' monies. Do we need to tighten more?
Linda, Nelson Mandela once said that if somebody can be taught to hate, they can also be taught to love. And I think we have taken this culture of corruption, and nowadays it's a norm. The way you said earlier on, even the structures that are there, they are not really serious in fighting these menace of corruption. Sometimes they appear to be fighting so that they can appease to the masses. Because if a structure like ESCC with the people who are very experienced, they should be able to understand that if money has been stolen, who are the people to hold accountable? Stop taking us in circles, and we've seen a lot of cases being taken in courts and being thrown out. So I think you are right about the structures not being capable to fight corruption in this country.
All right.
We need this a song, yes.
Okay, thank you. As we get to wind up on this one, why not take a look at the cartoon edition? I have seen Eric trying to study it very well. The CSs also saying that they want to try the waters of politics. And, you know, unaingisha mguu moja ndani kwanza unataka kusema how deep is it? What do you make of this? Matiang'i, Tobiko.
Matiang'i and Tobiko. What's happening here is that politics has come in, and Tobiko, the altercation they had the other day, and Matiang'i here has been in politics for long because in his position, actually, he can't run away from politics.
Oh, yeah?
He is in the internal security. Atagwara mutu tu, liwe liwalo, and it has to be a one-on-one altercation.
Yeah.
So they are trying to see if how deep it is, if at all they can go in.
Yeah.
And I would tell anyone is welcome in politics as long as you can take care of your emotions. Politics is not a place where when mud is thrown at you, you throw it back as a stone.
Yeah.
You can bring it back as a flower. And that's why you're told there are no permanent enemies in politics. It's interests that are more that people look at. So if they want to come in, come in. And you realize majority of these CSs will be joining us in politics very soon. Yes.
This is a strategic move, so to ask Anyona, and for Matiang'i, I would want to look at it as a special case. One, like what Daktari says, that, you know, there's no way he would have looked himself out of politics. But equally, there's the fact that, you know, a majority of people have felt like maybe he's done well in most of the dockets that he's been placed on. And they have said, you know what, try and get into politics. Maybe you can make a good one. And he probably says, oh, okay, let me heed to these cries. What do you make of this as they step in, as they try their hand in politics?
It's not a shock. I mean, the cabinet secretaries have been doing politics all along, even though the constitution does not allow. For somebody like the cabinet secretary, Matiang'i, I have a contrary opinion. I don't believe that he has performed his duties so excellently, the way Kenyans put it. He has tried to play a lot of public relations, because even if you ask somebody, what has he done? Just list 5 things that the cabinet secretary Matiang'i has done. Perhaps you'll mention exams, failing student exams, and maybe painting our buses yellow. I don't see any other new thing that these people have done. You know, Linda, you will realize that people, you know, the moment somebody else who's a performer will take over the position of Matiang'i, that is the time we will realize that these people were doing nothing. For now, we're just praising them because they look better than the others. There are, of course, the other cabinet secretaries who are just earning salaries. We can't see anything substantive. They are just there. We don't even see them in news anyway. So I think the cabinet secretaries, especially Cabinet Secretary Biko, who's been out, I think, who's been off politics a little bit, is starting to come into politics. My brother Eric says that they're welcome into politics. That is true, but this is not the right time. Let them wait until 2022 when they resign. This country needs their services. They are paid by taxpayers' money. They are not there by it's a favor from the people anyway.
But are you not the same person, Frank? Are you not the same person who just said that, you know, it's hard to root out politics from, you know, some of these and the activities in the country anyway?
Yes, like the union. I was talking about NAT.
Yeah.
Any union, it's very difficult to separate any union like TSC, KUPPET, NAT from politics. Those are politicians.
What of that declaration of the DP? You equally started by saying, well, the DP is allowed to proceed and politic. Don't you think equally the taxpayer pays him and would want him to address other things? I mean, there are very many things that are at stake in the country today.
Perhaps we should narrow down to what are the functions of the deputy president.
Yes.
There are reasons as to why the deputy president has been making inroads.
To politics?
And you'd realize,
all right.
You'd realize that this government, I would side with him any day, because this government has sidelined him. There's nothing he's doing. Even when they were campaigning with the president to work together. But if you realize that you've not been assigned any job, then you'll I think even the deputy president is a little bit fair.
Eric wants to come in.
Just before Eric comes in, if it was somebody else, I think by now they would have been going to the streets and demonstrating for being sidelined. We've seen these things even in the Kibaki government. So the deputy president has been a very fair man, trying to respect the head of state.
Let's have Eric react to the same.
I'm thinking the deputy president doesn't have a portfolio. When he was campaigning with the president, he was campaigning as the deputy of the president. Under the constitution, Anyona, the deputy president has no functions under him other than deputizing the president and waiting to be assigned duty. Exactly what you're saying, assigning duty. How if I decide I'm not assigning him duty and I'm the president, wouldn't he just stay home? Exactly. He doesn't have his own duties. The other times we used to have a vice president who was a minister of home affairs. He had a portfolio as a minister of home affairs. You get here. So even the deputy governors don't have portfolio, and that's why in Muthominjuki case you cannot hear a deputy governor with the deputy governor there are scandals, or even in Migori. Reason they wait for duties from the governor. So if the deputy is not assigned duty, it is also part of the constitution that he's not been assigned duty, because it is either he's assigned or not assigned.
So in this case then, if not assigned, just stay. What he says, what Anyona says is that, and again, there's nothing to do. So if there's nothing to do, then there's that leeway to proceed and politic. And then what does it speak about the crafting of the constitution?
So, and that is why you're finding the president now gives an order and says, I don't want politics with my people. Stay out of politics. Now that is another assignment. He's assigned not to talk politics. So when you proceed to talk politics, you're doing what?
All right. You're going against.
Insubordinating the mkubwa. So it will come with repercussions. So he doesn't have duties. Actually, he was never voted.
All right, gentlemen. I think tumepata a grace period, and it's time now that we wind up on the newspaper review as we cross over to a different segment altogether. We tuned into the time of the same, but all the same, we come up with, just taking a look at the COVID-19 numbers, the changes that we witnessed today, and what it means for the country after this short break. Frank Anyona and Eric Rogalo, thank you so much for that particular segment.
Thank you.
and welcome back to the broadcast. And yes, we ran away from the newspapers a bit, and we have, just tidbits of discussions in regards to matters that equally are of importance. And we take a look at the curve on matters COVID-19 right here in the country. We all are recording, lower numbers after a very long time, and in what many would look at as sigh of relief or a step towards the direction. We still have Eric Regalo with us this morning on that particular segment, and Edward Githaiga. Let me just take a look at that very well, because it looks like a tongue twisted. Githaiga, right, Edward?
Yeah, that's right.
Githaiga, yes. Edward Githaiga joins us this morning. He's a youth leader and CEO Vision 2030. And we expound some more on these crucial issues. Of course, we get to know the effects of COVID-19 so far and just how much it has come in to probably alter Vision 2030. I hope, Edward, you'll be telling us that. And now, let's go straight to it. Gentlemen, first, I'll start with you, Eric. Do you suppose that the likes of Magufuli could be laughing at us now?
Probably yes, probably no. Magufuli got the right judgment on epidemiology and effects of diseases according to one, race, age, pattern and distribution. And what I'm talking about generally is having been born and bred in Africa.
Yeah.
And having been born in very squalid areas, you understand that our bodies get a lot of immunity from exposure. Immunity from a kid who is born in Kibra with an immunity of a kid who is born in Keren, these are two different people, two very different, distinct people.
Right.
The one born in Kibra may look like born in a very tough area, yes, going through difficulty, yes, but that kid's body is getting immunity squarely, very well, than a kid in Keren. So what I'm trying to say is, as having been born in Africa and stayed in Africa, the situation we found ourselves in Africa since the time up to today, we've gotten other strains of COVID. You remember, COVID is not only one. We have COVID-19, which is actually SARS-CoV-2. We've had other SARS.
Before.
Other CoVs are there, which cause other diseases. Okay? So having gone through all the other CoVs, when the COVID-19 came, as our situation here, our immunity was a bit raised.
Right.
Than the immunity of, example, kids born in Switzerland, who everything is nurtured and very loaned, like a lawnmower doing the grass and you cutting the grass with a slasher.
Right.
These are different. So that kid and somebody born there, the immunity are not there because they have never gone through some of the difficult situations we've gone through, or even difficult exposures we've gone through. So what happens? If a new disease comes, it will hit them more than us.
Right.
We may guard ourselves as much, but we may not be in a difficult situation as them. I'm not disputing that other people got it very tough. Of course, you'll get one or two. And that's why we were saying, those people who have immunity lowered by other conditions, that we call in medical terms comorbidity. You have lung issues like TB, you have diabetes, any condition that lowers your immunity, you have a chance of getting hit by this COVID.
Right.
And the situation would have been then, why don't we look at our healthcare system and squarely protect the very vulnerable group and leave this other group to get herd immunity?
All right.
And I think that is what Tanzania went for. They went to protect these other people and left this other energetic group to gather herd immunity.
All right, and that aside, that's pretty much important and key lessons to pick. Edward, as we watch slowly the curve going down, there's been some bit of course, slowing down by the Kenyans in terms of, following up the guidelines. But equally, it looks like it's a sigh of relief, some bit of hope, some bit of smiling, because then there's that feel that once we see the numbers going lower and lower and lower, we're likely to, first of all, start the route, or go back to the route of realizing our visions, go back to the route of, revamping our businesses and the economic sector at large. So looking at this, first of all, what would you say has been the effect of COVID-19 on the Vision 2030? Because many have been talking about Vision 2030. Some will not even tell you what exactly this is all about. But at least there is a vision.
All right. Thank you very much for hosting me today. Just going direct to your question, I believe what my brother said is right. If I may quickly jump on the Magufuli issue first.
Yeah.
Obviously, Tanzania is an independent country which is a sovereign state. They have the right to choose what method they wanted to choose in terms of dealing with COVID-19. In fact, when I had in East Africa per se, we had Uganda doing a total lockdown, and then we had Kenya doing a semi-lockdown, and then we had Tanzania doing a hardening kind of no lockdown, just let people's immunity gather their strength. So all in all, it shouldn't look like it's a competition. We are part of East Africa, we're the same people, and if we are able to overcome it through lockdown, semi-lockdown, or through the hardening way, we thank God to be alive. And I'm sure we're supposed to be now looking at the ways we're going to continue building our economies and building this country to another level. Now, catching up onto the issue about the vision, the Big Four agenda, and many other things that are government policy that were put in place so that Kenya can attain certain degree of development, both human and infrastructural, that has actually been hit very hard because, as you know, most of the projects were shut down. Most of the people the professionals and the people who are working, the workforce, even the finances were cut down. There are so many roads right now that are not going on. There's so many constructions that have actually stopped. So this has really affected the Vision 2030 and the other agendas that are in government. And so it's upon the people and the government itself to now reconfigure and reboot itself and relook again, what are the lessons learned? Let's look at the Vision 2030. It also talks about health. What are the lessons learned from this issue about health? What can we take home? What can we do different now? Because pandemics will be there. Let's live in reality.
Yeah.
It's not the way we were living before. Things are very different now. And because the world is a global city, then the spread of such diseases are imminent and they can happen again. It's an imminent threat. So what we need to look at is, first, are we prepared for anything else like this? And to me, I'm still hopeful that with the curve going flat or going down, that it will continue that way. I appreciate my brother what he's saying. There were different kind of strains in different countries, and therefore everybody had a different experience.
All right, and looping in Eric again, exactly what we're talking about, that yes, we have seen the curve going down, at least from the numbers that we've been given by the Ministry of Health. Kenyans have decided to throw caution to the wind. And as, of course, World Health Organization would react to the same, they say it's still too early to celebrate. But sincerely speaking, do you suppose then that equally, well, this move is not a wise move? And we've even seen the state itself trying to scale down on the burial protocols. I mean, one, to root out or to tame stigma. And, generally still Kenyans ask questions as to, was it necessary to do the kind of burials that were done at this point?
I want to come in, Linda, and ask you a question. Not asking you per se. I'm saying you because the whole nation.
Right.
Is it not the same World Health Organization that told us to bury our people and cover ourselves and do what have you?
Yes.
And then they are the same people who are telling us that SARS-CoV-2 can only be transmitted by sneezing, coughing, and talking with open aeration. So are they not the people who told that this is an aerosol? The question comes in. You have a dead body, has gone through the morgue. It is flat lung now. How will that dead body transmit a virus?
Question mark.
Is it talking?
No.
Is it coughing?
No.
Is it sneezing? No. Then why cover yourself when you're burying the dead body? Why fumigate that coffin where the dead body is inside?
Context is key. Maybe that's why. Well,
What are you contacting? The dead body is inside the box.
All right.
You are contacting outside the box. So where is the contact between you and the dead body? Where is the contact?
All right.
So, and you are told to, when you go to bury 15 people alone around the burial site, and it is already inside the hole. You guys are up here. So
well, that was in observance of the social distancing, I suppose.
It's all because of the dead body. You get me?
Right.
So the question still remain. Again, I would ask you. We are told the virus survives in all bacteria, virus, or all protozoa have environment for them to survive. Out of that environment, they die. You're told HIV patient cannot transmit a virus to you even when you touch them. And if you touch them with open hand and they are still having some mosses on their skin, as long as your hand is intact, you cannot get infected. You can only go wash your hand, which is obvious. And that's why today we live with our patients in our own houses.
Yeah.
We even share dishes. It came to a point where even in SARS-CoV, I would see that you are sharing things and not sharing with others. Why does it have to reach such a point, like people who never went to some little bit biology study and told you that some things are not transmitted that way? I'm not disputing what the World Health Organization said, but I'm questioning some of their. And why is it all of a sudden that now you can bury and go close to a dead body? What has just changed? Is the lung, has they realized that now the lung is flat? Or what has happened?
It seems like a stigmatization came from the societal, view. But from the look of things,
stigma starts with where the information comes from.
Okay.
When the information is brought by World Health Organization, the first contact of information is actually the media, because World Health Organization is actually to the government.
Yeah.
The government comes to the media, transmit this information to Kenyans by what? TV, radio, blah, 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 gazette, and what have you. So the media people read as they are given, because they are not supposed to interpret on their way.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Then they bring adverts, nini. So what happens? You already sell fear.
Okay.
Why can't we have our own thoughts of how to manage our own diseases? I'll give you an example. You go abroad, the white people fear malaria so much that they cover themselves treating malaria patients.
Right.
And why? The same malaria patient there will die of malaria just because of mismanagement. But in Africa here, malaria patient anapatia tu dawa aende nyumbani akimezanga. By the time anafika nyumbani, temperatures zimeanza kushuka. They say waende akidry. You understand? Right. So now my question is, why can't we understand how diseases are managed differently? Because how we manage HIV in Kenya, I'm pretty sure it is managed better than it will be managed elsewhere, because of how we've come to handle HIV here. And that is how Palomega started here, and Cameron. There was a drug by Kemri called Cameron, and Palomega by Professor Obel. We came to a situation where we were also doing our own research on drugs. Coming to COVID, man, we are not doing research. Our research went down. What was happening the time HIV started, where we came up with a way of doing, and even we went international with our Cameron and Palomega. Right now, Madagascar wakileta juice yao, tunawachekelea. They could be doing it right.
Right.
We need to support each other in Africa, because Africa is a cradle of medicine.
Yeah.
All this medicine you use, and when you study, you're told drugs come from plants, what have you. And Africa here, we have a lot of plants.
Right.
We actually can treat HIV
Yeah.
if we are only serious to do our research. Going to Vision 2030, where my brother is,
And you can feel free to come in.
Which he's there.
Yeah.
research in Vision 2030, which is there, it under PHC. Right. He understands when I say PHC. What are we doing in research under Vision 20? Corona has showed us we are not doing any research. Right. Corona has showed us that we can build our own hospital equipments. Industrialization under Vision 2030. So Corona has been a blessing in disguise. It has opened our eyes that we can actually do most of the things alone. Corona has showed us that we can even make our own nguos and stop mitumba. Right. We've not been selling mitumba for a long time now, over 3, 4, 5 months. And our president have been wearing custom-made shirts until sasa tunaonaga yeye ni mtu ya mashati. Oh man, those shirts are cool, man. Yeah. So tunaweza zipata namna gani? We grow ourselves. We get our own goals. So under that, then Corona showed us the way. Tuache kutegemea mchina, America, Britain, we can do our own things.
All right, let's have Edward come in and picking up from that very note where, we look at the lessons that we've picked from COVID-19. Do you suppose then that, again, we're probably going to go back to the drawing board and maybe have a conversation, yes, and have conversations that are going to be helpful, and, we see where we had gone wrong and we make changes? Do you suppose there's going to be a better approach to issues, especially when we are looking at Vision 2030? And it's unfortunate because then, starting from the point that we're in, we all thought that maybe it's going to be a different affair at the level of the health sector. But even as we battle COVID-19, even as we had started by celebrating our frontline workers, it's a whole different affair when you see them coming out to say that they're going to head for strikes. They still complain day in, day out. Months into it, they still tell you that the situation is bad for them that are handling patients with COVID-19. Edward?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, yeah.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to point out something here that you need to understand in Kenya's situation, because it's very important to understand where Kenya stands in this whole issue. When we talk about WHO is an active program within the United Nations body. Kenya is a signatory to this statute, and Kenya hosts United Nations here in Africa. So when you look at the relationship that Kenya had to maintain with the WHO, and especially noting that our own Dr. Amoth was appointed right after the break of COVID-19 in Africa, he was appointed the executive vice president of WHO. So then when it comes to policy level and you have an implementing partner such as WHO, we as Kenya were bound to follow to what were being instructed and to follow onto the rules, because let's not play clever and say that, oh, this is the issue. When this disease hit us, nobody knew what it was and what issues were there. So I would like to correct my brother and say these were just precautionary measures. You would not put the people at risk. Everything was going to put the people at risk. Even the issue about burials. If it was you, put yourself in that situation. Whether they say that the disease is contracted through sneezing, through spread of spit and other contacts that are close, nobody knew that indeed that by burying somebody you would not be infected. It is through the trial. And even you're talking about research. Research is also about trial. It's also about the learning lessons that we learned. But first things first, take precautions. And indeed, once you realize that the dead bodies cannot spread the disease, then you change the tack and you tell the people the truth. Right. Not that they were lying, but it was a precaution. Secondly, when we come to research in Kenya, there's a time the Minister of Health was very vexed with the international Western donors, because I don't want to believe that Kemri is dead, like my brother is saying. What is happening is the problem with this time around, unlike before when we had the HIV and we had the other issues, and Kenya was well involved in Kenron and other research issues, the Western donors have kind of infiltrated us, because they're saying when they give you the funds for research, then they own the ownership of that outcome research. And the minister was categorical that any research that was conducted in Kenya during COVID-19 remains the property of Kenya. And this is where the conflict is. So I believe it was lack of information to the citizenry to understand that it's not that Kenya was not researching for COVID-19. It's just that there were so many complications in where the money was coming for the research. But moving on, the thing which I would like to finish by saying is this. What are the lessons learned about COVID-19? One, there are many issues, and what they say is that people who have underlying issues such as diabetes, such as blood pressure, such as lifestyle diseases and others, they had more chances of dying after contracting COVID-19. So this means that right now our capacity in health should be focused in dealing with these other diseases that we already have. We need to invest our money in finding the cure for diabetes. We need to invest our money for finding the cure for high blood pressure. We need to invest in finding the cures of these many other diseases that are actually diminishing our immune system and making our bodies weaker, so that we will not be able to survive any atrocity or any attack by bacteria or viruses. So the main thing that I believe Vision 2030, now moving on from an African-centric position, is we need to look at what is near home. What it taught us is this. Everybody started eating lemons. Everybody started taking ginger. Everybody started taking garlic. Everybody started using herbal medicine. We need to look at alternative medicine and invest the billions that we invest in pharmaceutical medicines. Because I'm sure every time we come up with an invention of a pharmaceutical medicine, the West is always ahead of us. But I'm sure if we try look at alternative medicine, we will be ahead of them, and we will be able to treat ourselves. Like my brother gave the example about Madagascar. The Madagascar issue is the best example, where you're looking inside yourself for solutions. So I believe we as an
Well, apologies for that technical hitch. And we're back. I think we had expounded some more on the issue of COVID-19, and we leave it at that. Yes, we cross over to the revenue share stalemate that is ongoing, and we talk of a scenario where the Senate resumes sitting, and the main focus now is how they can get the county's car sharing formula addressed ASAP. In what, of course, the Speaker says they are determined and focused towards ensuring that, they get answers today. They will ban midnight oil if need be, at least to get a lasting solution in this scenario. As we get to wind up towards the last laps of the session, what are your expectations, gentlemen? I'll start off with Eric.
What I know is that today we are going to get a formula.
Yeah.
Today is the 10th, or rather 11th trial, because the 10th one, Yakina Malala walishikwa, so there was nothing. So this is the 11th trial. We'll get a formula. One, there is pressure from the ground. Money has not been paid. Nurses and doctors are planning on a strike because of that. They have not been paid. Even the emergency, having to work under strenuous situations because of COVID, they have not been paid. And some counties are already contemplating taking loans from institutions, bank and what have you, to pay salaries as they wait. I heard that from Kisumu. They wanted to get 400 million from elsewhere. Some counties have threatened to ground down, like Meru threatened to just stop working and wait for the government to pay. All this pressure is coming back now to senators. And they are being pointed, boss, sisi tunataka pesa. Tulipwe pesa tuendelee na maisha yetu. Tujalipwa mishahara miezi mbili tatu. So what will happen here is that we're going to get a formula. We should get something very sober that all Kenyans love and all Kenyans can work with. Or we'll have some part of the country laughing, the other part of the country not laughing. And one thing I also want to advise is that there is no more human than the other. You cannot tell me just because a certain part of the country has many people and another part doesn't have many people, is that part gives more revenue or not. You can have a country with fewer people but wealthier than a country that with many people. We've seen that. A country like Nigeria is not as wealthy as Switzerland. Why? So Nigeria is bigger economy than Switzerland, yes, but is not wealthier than the other one, yes. So you can have a big economy, but not wealthy. You can have a county that has fewer people that can bring more money to the exchequer than a county that is so populated. Population is just because of nearness to some of this infrastructure that are usually essential for human development or human being continuity of life. I'll give an example of Turkana County. You have oil, and we have many other things. And it's the biggest country we have. How many things can we get from Turkana? Even water, we are told water under Turkana alone, the water they have underground can give us livelihood for many years. So if we can tap in those resources, then Turkana still is the wealthiest. But you can have Nairobi as the most populous, with a big economy, but not the wealthiest. So let's look at all these factors together and say we are diverse, and that's why we are Kenya, and give something that gives us happiness, a good livelihood, and remember, it's all one Kenya.
All right. Yes. Well, amazing right there. Still witnessed the level of the counties is a do or die situation at the Senate. They have to give a solution so at least they can unlock the deadlock that is being witnessed across the counties. Coming to you, Edward, first of all, apologies for interrupting your line of thought earlier on, but coming to this subject of the stalemate of revenue sharing, what are your expectations moving on?
First of all, I'd like to be very honest and blunt in this issue. Let's be sober. The Constitution had envisioned that indeed Kenya was a very unequal country, and the revenue distribution was being distributed in a very unequal and discriminatory manner. And that's why when the Constitution came in, the first formula, for example, that was used was about the land mass. Because if you look, the northern frontier of Kenya was one of the most affected areas because there were no roads, there was no infrastructure, there was no nothing there. So we were all in agreement that indeed, in order for these people to, and their Kenyans, in order for their regions to be able to catch up, they need more money put in the revenue share. However, let's be sincere. The Constitution also said that we have other methods or other formulas that we also need to put in place so that we'll be able to try and see that we are not hurting this side and this side is not just gaining. So that's why the CRA gave another formula using the population, because we had already tried the land mass and it was working. But at the same time, what were the effects of that and what were the learning lessons? You see, I think Kenyans are very highly politicized in everything. I mean, everything is just about politics. When you say you have, say, for example, in central Kenya, for example, in an area like Kiambu, you have people, you have about, say, 2 million Kenyans living in Kiambu. Yeah. Take those 2 million people, take about 70%, maybe 1.3 million or 1 million are actually school-going children. How much do these school-going children receive in this formula? Maybe they get 4,000 shillings per year. Then you find, because of the other areas which are landmass and they are less population, you'll find a child getting 20,000, which is good. But now, don't you think it's time that we consider this child who's getting 4,000 in order for him to access better education, in order for him to access more services? Don't you think it's time for that population to go? And just to sum up, this discussion should be the agriculture, the revenue share they're talking about. How are they going to divide it? Or are we talking about sharing revenue so that governors can take money and be corrupt about it? If they are talking about agriculture, the Mapato Protocol, how much percent does it envision that every African government should invest in agriculture? Are we there yet? Not yet. Look at energy. He just talked about Turkana, my brother. All the resource that we have there in Turkana, should we invest money just because we are saying we're investing because of a landmass, or is it supposed to be targeting a certain input that will be used to benefit the country? Look at infrastructure. So the money should be divided into sectors, not just saying that, oh, we need a lot of money to go where? This is a very corrupt country, and I believe these politicians that we have even in the Senate have really shown us that this is just about their own stomach and their own selfish thing. It's not about the people on the ground. It's not about the people in Turkana. It's not about the people in Kiambu or in Nyanza or in Mombasa. It is about their stomachs and egocentric behavior. And this is what we need to change. We need the politicians to focus on legislation, and simple as that. But when they bring politics in every little thing, we Kenyans are the ones who are losing. Like my brother said, some counties are being forced to take loans. How are these loans being taken? Are we guaranteed that this money is not going to be misused by the same politicians? So therefore, I feel that we need to have a candid discussion as Kenyans, involving the politicians and everybody else, but we need to speak the truth and be sober. If we need to get another formula, let us try another formula. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Edward Githaiga, youth leader and CEO Vision 2030 equally. Thank you so much, Eric Regalo, for the great insights that you've given to us this morning. And we all are setting our eyes to see what it is that the Senate will do this time around. And you can always trust TV47 to update you on the same as and when we get this information. That's where we get to wind up this session of current affairs as we cross over to matters lifestyle. And the biggest question today, or the topic of discussion, is how best you can cope with divorce. We hear that very many cases of divorce have been reported at this time of COVID-19. But just how are you able to cope with the same? After this break. And we're here back with the lifestyle segment and importantly discussing crucial issues that are of importance to you. And today we're all about discussing coping after a divorce or bouncing back after a divorce or coping with divorce. Whichever way you want to look at it or whichever way you want to term it, is important that we have this candid conversation. We have a psychologist on board. Her name is Faith Kishanga Osiro, who joins us to expound more on the same. Not necessarily out of experience, but on a psychological perspective, professional perspective. And anyway, even if it's out of that, so that's how we get to learn, because experiences, as they would say, are the best when it comes to teaching. So experience is the best teacher, is what I'm trying to say in a nutshell. Faith, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good to have you.
Thank you.
All right.
Good to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Happy to
yes, one would think that, okay, probably this is not my subject because I am not divorced. I am not intending to get divorced. But reality is that deep down, when you're marching into marriage, there's always that fear of the unknown, because you do not know what tomorrow holds.
True.
You do not know whether you're going to have the same affection for your partner for the rest of time. You do not know whether they're going to disappoint you.
True.
And you always want to question yourself, call yourself for a meeting, as they would say, and say, the event that it happens, what happens? And when it dawns and it comes for some, it is a very hard time to go through. And questions are, how do I cope? How do I get myself back? How do I learn to love myself back? So hence the reason why we termed it necessary to have this conversation.
Absolutely.
So where do we start from?
Okay. Thank you so much for having me here. And you are correct. When we begin this journey of marriage, and especially with the trends that we are seeing, divorce is real and it's happening.
Yeah.
So we do get sometimes that anxiety, and so some people never even get to walk down the aisle just for fear that it might not go the way they had thought.
Yeah.
But what I'm liking is that we can no longer bury our head in the sand.
Right.
It's happening and it's a lot. And these are people, they are, even if it's not us, they are our sisters, they are our friends, they are our children. So we need to discuss. So for so long, I must say that it's been there's been a lot of stigma around divorce.
Right.
But whether we address it or not, it's happening. So I think we need to see then how can these people. So first of all, less stigma. I don't think anyone ever starts off thinking this is where I want to, I mean, maybe they're there, but that's, maybe we're talking about, I don't know, people in the US wanting a green card, but that's very different. A lot of people want to get married and for them, for it to stay in the long haul. So first of all, to just know no one brings this upon themselves. So for the caregivers, the people who are around them, the support system, it's just to know that nobody wishes this on themselves.
Yeah.
And as much as you're sure, I am sure about myself, or you're sure about yourself, a marriage takes two people.
Right.
I can be very sure and very committed, but also to know that person, maybe your friend or your sister, may have wanted it and may have worked, but it takes two, and the other person was not interested. So that's a good place to begin.
Right.
Less stigma. Let's start from there.
Okay, before we even get to that level of, now it has happened and you have to cope with it and know what next. Equally, you find that there are people who are still, in the setup of marriage, so to speak, but genuinely they are divorced because of the tough times that they're going through, because, they just want to paint a picture of, yes, marriage to the society, but really the marital activities are not going on as expected within. Could this be informed by the stigma that revolves around that? What really informs the fact that they can still hold in there, in as much as it's toxic, it is not working for them, and the two of them know very well that really there is no marriage here.
Yeah. Yes, so that's a big part of it. There is shame. People suffer shame.
Yeah.
And this is whether I tell you shame on you or not, there's just the inbuilt, because it's a culture, and our culture, we have these values and we uphold marriage.
Yeah.
So there's the shame. There's that shame you don't want to go through. So you'd rather just put up this show than have to deal with the consequences of, my marriage is not working.
Yeah.
And because especially maybe when it comes to women, you'll be like, so what did you not do? How come you couldn't keep a marriage? So that's a huge one. But also, I mean, there are many other things, maybe financial security, sometimes we stay in it for the children. So there are many reasons why people would still stay in it. Stigma is one of them. Yes.
All right, so do you suppose then that equally this factor of not knowing how you would cope with it would get most of the people saying that, well, better the devil you know than the angel you don't. I better stick here because, well, I am used to this, as opposed to going out there that I do not know how the waters sort of feel like or how deep they are.
That is so true. It's an unknown, just as you're calling it, so much uncertainty. Because we're also saying your identity is changing. I am Mrs. Osiro. I have to go back to not being Mrs. Osiro. What does that mean? I can't go back. I remember when I was getting married and our pastor told us, you never go back to being single.
Okay. Never ever.
No. Once you're married, you don't really go back to who you used to be. You've been married and you've gone through this process. Actually, sometimes they say divorce is not the end of a relationship. It's just that relationship changes in form.
Okay.
Yes, you'll never not have been married. So, whether when you go to court, say, it was an annulment, but that's the thing. So, yes, so not knowing how to cope. So there's that identity. You have to say, okay, Christmas, we used to do this. What does that mean now? What does that mean for me on Christmas Day? So many things, traditions, those have to change. So I have children, we have children, and what does my children won't see their dad every day, or I won't see my children every day. So a lot of not having that information on how to cope, and it's because we've not talked about it. I think it's very sad that we've not talked about it. We've buried our heads in the sand. It's a taboo, so we won't even address how someone can move forward from it. So I think the society, we've also just let ourselves down and our loved ones down.
All right. Okay, now let's overlook all the stigma that comes along with that. Well, much as maybe we cannot run away from that. And I'll pick the subject of the day, coping up with divorce, before we even get to, bouncing back. Also at this time, it is that period that you're going through it. It's the first month, it's the second month. There are processes to it. Some people have gone through the official process, that is church weddings, weddings, of course, the Muslim weddings, whichever way. And some of them was a come we stay. And you still cannot overlook the fact that, it was just a come we stay. So, okay, lots of years have been spent with the two of you together and all that. So first, what is the first point, or first of all, being able to cope with this?
Okay, so first of all, I don't think we can simplify it like that and say, this is the magic pill. Once you start to, they say divorce is so traumatizing that it's sometimes equated to the death of a spouse.
Okay.
Yeah. So, sometimes you can say, no, at least, yours is alive. No. It's very traumatizing. And in fact, in this one, there is the aspect of rejection, because at least when not at least, wrong word, but when your spouse dies, it's a natural thing. But divorce is everything, the loss plus the rejection that comes with it. So there's no magic pill. But some of the things are not even so much what you will do, but understanding the process. So for example, being okay, but knowing it's okay not to be okay. So you're saying, you alluded earlier to the fact that we want to be seen in a certain way. So it's okay to fall apart. Divorce is huge. It will do a number. You have emotions such as what I'm saying. There's the feeling of rejection. There's overwhelming sadness. There's loss. There's loss. There's loss of your dreams and hopes together. There's the loss of identity, as I talked about earlier. There's the loss of a partner, and a lot of times, even when we are conflicting in marriage, that person is a significant part of your life. They're your friend. So so there are many losses that you're going through. So first of all, just knowing it's okay to not be okay. I think secondly, I'd say just brace yourself. It's a difficult journey, but there's the other side, and especially if you have the right support, there's the other side. So knowing that this won't last forever. it's a dark side, but there's the other side. So just knowing that it's a process that you're going through, and you know, those are some of the things. But also just surrounding yourself with support system. You do not do this alone.
You do not do this alone. Most of the
No.
people will want to be, you know, somewhere, hide themselves,
Ironically.
time away.
Ironically,
And
yes.
it sounds fulfilling for many who I've spoken to. They say, well, I need time alone and it's working.
Well, if it's working, it's working. But I wouldn't recommend that. Maybe say, okay, there are the moments I'm alone. But you know, when you're alone, when you're going through something, when you're alone, you're just ruminating. You're ruminating. You're just going over. You're going over. How could I not see this? How could I? It can get into a spiral. Yeah. So sometimes it's just good to be around people. Well, we're not saying everyone, but at least a close circle or a therapist. But at least know that there are people out there that you can rely on.
Is it healthy to have this person that you are running away from around you? Because you find that sometimes, well, it's not worked well. And as I would say, women, you know, will leave this place for 10 years before they officially decide that this is it. So if she leaves officially, then it means she started living long time ago.
Yep.
So eventually she decides that's it. But maybe the man is there trying to solve the situation and all that, but you know, the decision is already made with this other party. Like you said, you know, you would be wanting to commit, but the other party does not want to.
True.
Is it healthy to have these people around you? Or maybe you should take that direction where you're normally told, switch them off, block them if need be, let them not be close to you.
So the person that you're...
Yes, the person that you're running away, you're divorcing for that matter. So, you know, it's like, yeah, you want to have people around. You're going through a tough time.
Yes.
But again, the person that is there is this person that you're trying to run away from.
Okay. So that becomes very difficult and confusing because if then you've decided you're going through a divorce, then there has to be some boundaries.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what you'll just do, you'll just keep mark timing in the same position. Yeah. At some point, if that's what you've decided, and if that's what you see, it's okay. There needs to be some separation in terms of, so that, okay, are we separating? Yes, we are. So what does that mean? But if we're saying we're separating, but we're here together, so...
But the emotions also sometimes would get you confused in the sense that, you know, you are like, okay, well, genuinely this is what I want. But then again, the warmth, you just don't want to have this warmth out of your life like that.
So, and that's what I'm saying. So what will you do? You'll have that someone there. So at what point then do you severe that? Like, you know, because eventually you've decided. So what it's just lengthens the process. That's what I'm saying. Then if you've decided, you will have to just, you know, cut the cord.
All right.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between, okay, make me understand.
Yes.
They say it's important to have a break. You know, after a divorce, give yourself that break.
Yes.
But equally, it's important to go through this with people. So how then do you give yourself a break? What exactly is this that we call a break? Yet at the same time, we recommend that it's important to have people around you so you can go through this with them, or they can help you go through this.
So hopefully we're saying a break from dating. Okay. Like you're not jumping from this into another, because for sure that might usually, okay, not for sure, but usually that does not go well. But we're saying that surround yourself with a support system. Support system is, you know, your close friends, and that's the other thing. I mean, it's divorce, and sometimes that's the other thing about divorce. I will tell you today, you know, yes, I'm feeling this is what I wanted, this is it, but then the following day I'm just boiling and I'm like, no, I'm not sure. Yeah. So that's why also a close-knit circle helps, so that, you know, the people you don't have to explain what's going on. Yes. So then that becomes useful, because as you're talking to people, you're processing as well. You're processing what's going on, because it's you know, the healing is not a straight line. Today you're like, yes, in fact, this marriage was not working for me, you know, and you're out there and you're doing your thing. Then when you're out there, you see in the movies, you see a couple holding each other,
and you miss that.
So you spiral back. So it's not a straight line. So you do need a support system. But as far as dating or toxic people, you know, there's some people who are good when we're happy, and you know, and maybe they're friends, but not that neat circle, who will make you second guess, make you feel bad about yourself. You know, those ones we can tell them once we are more advanced.
It's pretty much hard to know that, and sometimes, you know, you go to this close circle and you cry to them and you give them all the reasons as to why you've decided to take that direction, and it makes so much sense to them. In most cases mummies, and you know, the mummy will tell you, okay, you cannot go through this again, just say it's over and done. And then years later, some people start regretting and probably pointing fingers at the very same people who were there for them at then, and say, you know, if it weren't for you people, maybe, just maybe, I wouldn't have done this. Maybe I would have thought otherwise. So in such a scenario, how do you avoid a scenario where later on you'll start blaming people or blaming yourself also for taking that bold move?
Okay. So as far as blaming people, let me start with that. So you see, and when you are the support system of this person, it's not in your place to convince them why they need to leave or why they need to stay.
Okay.
Listen, first of all, just listen. That's the most this person needs. But also ask them questions. Let that be coming from them. Are you sure this is what you want? Okay, so you decided to divorce. What does it mean financially? But not, you know, you need to leave. We've seen it's not working. It can come back, you know, the way you're saying.
Yeah.
Now, for yourself, it almost always happens. When that time when you want a divorce, it makes so much sense. In fact, especially if you're the one who's, you know, signing. But most people, a big number, down the line, start realizing it was not, you know, the way I was saying, let's not simplify it. It's not as simple. It just didn't mean being away from this person I quarrel with all the time. It means cutting so many things that you had not imagined. The level of pain, the level of, you know, so usually it happens, and that's why it's important to seek therapy. Sometimes it's not because you regret, probably you don't even want the relationship back, but it's what is happening at that time. Now you feel lonely, or maybe your finances are not working out. So a therapist will help you navigate, okay, so what is it that is making you feel like this now? If it's truly the relationship, then that's it. But usually you'll find it's maybe now the children and maybe the children now are blaming you. So those things, but we can work on those things that are presenting themselves at that time. Yes.
All right, so how best do you take care of yourself emotionally, physically? Because then you get drained, and really sometimes you look at yourself in the mirror, most of them say that, and you no longer see yourself as a beautiful person, and that again, you see inferiority complex setting in. So how best do you get yourself to that emotional balance and equally physical wellness?
One of the most important things for the emotional is forgiveness. And it's forgiving yourself and forgiving the other person. Giving the other person, you know, by the time a divorce is happening, yes, there's a person who's saying, I want to, you know, these are the papers, what do they call the petitioner. However, it means by the time we're getting there was a breakdown in the relationship. Usually, very few people will live a very happy, fulfilling marriage, even though people say they're going on to another relationship. Usually there's a breakdown. So it's important for me, even if I'm not the one who's instigating the divorce, to take responsibility of my part in the breakdown, not in the divorce, but in the breakdown of the marriage. And forgive myself, because I'll say, okay, maybe if, you know, I had been more, I don't know, maybe cook better meals or whatever it is, or not work so hard and be home, maybe the divorce would not have happened. So so forgive yourself, but also, which is usually very difficult, forgive the other person. And we say this forgiveness is not even so much about the other person or for the other person, but for yourself. What you're doing is you're letting go of the pain. So that's important. Number one, forgiveness for the emotional healing. And then we talk about self-care. Self-care is now, and you know, there's some things when you start looking, you know, like, oh, you know, when I was married, actually, I couldn't just do this and that. Now I can, you know, I can travel, I can do this. Of course, it's difficult. Maybe this person needs to travel with all the time, but it's time to just, you know, you grow, and you go for the first one. Of course, probably it's terrible, but you're like, you know, you go back home and say, I did it. I didn't even think I can do a trip by myself. You know, things like that. So self-care, and then that what I started with, and also part of self-care is saying, today I am not okay. I am not okay, and maybe this is, you know, 6 months. It wouldn't make sense to anyone else, but to you, today is that day, and I'm not feeling okay. So to just be okay with not being okay. Yeah, and just because it doesn't make sense to other people, probably it's even 2 years down the line. Just because it doesn't make sense to other people, it's still okay because you're the one who's wearing those shoes. Yeah? And then something else, self-awareness. Self-awareness is very important. Just to know how much of what I'm feeling is related to what's going on. Yeah. And what kind of a person? How do I handle stress? How do I handle, how is my resilience levels? You know, so there's a lot of self-awareness, and also you realize when you're in a marriage, a lot of us get the identity and almost like the personality of the other person, and we lose ourselves. So it's self-awareness, like, wait, actually this is the music that I like. I used to listen to this just because he used to like it, or she likes it. So going through the process of self-awareness and self-discovery, and a lot of people will tell you when they're coming out of the other side, it's like, oh, I am this, I am that, these are my strengths. I realized I also had these weaknesses, so that's also part of the healing journey.
That's amazing. I am just thinking of the numerous women who had to love football, because of their spouses, and now you have to drop Manchester. Anyway, that aside, struggles, arguments with the spouses as you try to let go, especially culminating from the fact that they're children, culminating from the fact that you had investments together. They will always crop up. Just how best can you avoid this and solve some of this issue amicably? And is it possible to solve them one time, or some will have to take processes?
I think for sure it will take time, but I think the initial, especially when you're going through the divorce, that is a very fundamental time. And just because also the emotions are very raw. Some of the arguments we'll be having maybe about the custody, well, not really about the custody. I think you're okay having the kids this weekend and like that. But I am feeling you did this to me, you broke, so I will turn that around to something else and probably just deny you that custody. But it's not about the custody. So it's important to, again, get that support if it's therapy, just for you to be able to deal with your emotions and to know, again, self-awareness, when this is an issue of really the custody or how we are sharing property, or it's my bitterness and the anger that is driving this. So that becomes very key of that being reflective. That outburst, was it actually because he's mistreating me, or because I'm still feeling, how could you do this? So that becomes important in that process. But it will take time, and then just knowing that even if I am the party who feels wronged, that I'll have to work. I think that's the hard part, because I'm just like, you're the one who wanted the divorce, you make this divorce work. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. That even though I feel like I'm the one who was wronged or left, I still need to work hard. I have to keep my emotions in check. I have to be rational, make decisions rationally more than emotionally. So just knowing that, even both parties will have to work hard, and also that it's not easy. Even for the person leaving, it's never easy. In fact, they're also second guessing. I think it's just not easy to walk out of a marriage. So they're also second guessing themselves. They're feeling shame. They're feeling guilt. So emotions are quite right. So that's what we need to deal with, especially at the beginning of the relationship.
All right.
And of the divorce.
Of the divorce. Yes. So it's not always about the two of you. There could be children and family, extended family, your mom, her mom, his mom, and all that. So as you walk yourself through this, how then do you speak and talk and get these other people to equally understand that, what, Mama, I know you wanted me to be married. You pride in that. You move around telling your friends, reminding them, they keep talking about how beautiful your wedding was. And here you are, I'm coming back home. And
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. Also, just because of our society, we don't get married. Me and Mr. Osiro, it's my family and Mr. Osiro's family, and
all together, and friends equally, friends of their family.
And by the way, that's also another complication of divorce, because even friends, it's like we have to split loyalty. People have to, so it's very difficult. So let's say children. For children, so first of all, it's important to tell them what's happening. I feel like at least nowadays we are living in an in an era where we consider children's emotions.
Yeah.
I think back in our days, you'll just be shifted from this house to the other and no explanation. But as you're telling them, it needs to be age appropriate. So because what you'll tell the 3-year-old and the 8-year-old different from the 15-year-old, so age appropriate. But it's important to tell them rather than they're just wondering, they're being yanked from here, they're being taken. So just age appropriate, it's important to tell them. Number one. Number two, to check in with them. How are you feeling today? And maybe they're like, I'm so sad. How could dad do this? Or mom, why didn't you try harder? And it's okay to tell them, I'm also feeling sad, I'm feeling sad, but we can get through this together. So check in with them. And then for children, again, just for them to know maybe what to expect in the future. What does this mean for them? Because what is difficult for the children is to feel like, okay, so what's going to happen? That uncertainty. Our parents, you know how as a child your parent is like the most solid person, and you're like, okay, so this structure is not there anymore. So it's important for them to still have that security, to be assured that this is not about you. Dad is not, or mom is not leaving you, children. It's me. It's, to differentiate that it's a marriage. It's not the relationship with the children. So for children, that's important. And then for family, for the rest of the family and parents, it's important to, we say, individuating, just to know that, at the end of the day, that I am the one who's going through this. Because sometimes what happens is I'm the one who's going through it, but I'm having to console other people. That becomes very difficult. I'm the one who's having to manage my mom, I'm the one who's having to manage, everyone else, and I'm the one who's going through this. So just the individuation of, just making them understand that, it's this, it's not what I would have wanted, far from it, but this is what is happening. And it's okay to say, I don't even, because people will ask, hey, so what are the plans? You didn't plan for it. You did say, in the year 2020, December, I'll divorce, and then now this is the plan. Very early. So you're like, I'm also figuring it as I go along.
All right, there's so much to discuss about this, but time is not on our side. But importantly, bouncing back. And, like you say, you don't have it all figured out, but eventually you have to bounce back. If at all you have to get through that, and, 2 years down the line, make the next move, you have to figure it out. So, lessons. Introducing the next person, and having to clearly shut everything that happened on this other side, on that other side, not having memories that will keep haunting you when you look at this person that you have right now and you start thinking of the other and all that. Just how then do you bounce back?
So by bouncing back, you mean getting into another relationship?
Well, generally, not even necessarily because there are people who decide, okay, I don't think I need to get into another relationship, but you pick lessons.
Okay.
You say that now, moving forward, how do I make myself better and not have my past haunt me? Yeah.
Okay. So those 2 years then will be very, very important. How the next 20 go. It's what you do during these 2 years that will determine whether you will then stay there wallowing and looking at every man or every woman as the person who probably left. So it's important to deal with the emotions. Again, deal with the emotions. And as I said, forgiveness. Forgive yourself, forgive the other person. Initially, it will be very mechanical. But for me, I tell my clients, you know what, every time you're feeling that anger you're feeling, just say out loud. It will sound very mechanical, but like, I forgive you, so and so.
Yeah.
Very mechanical, but what it's doing something to your brain. Eventually, it will make sense, and you will find yourself you're forgiving that person. So before you move on, it's that. And then number two, what you're saying, the lessons. The truth is, for any relationship to break down, it takes two. There's the one who almost always looks like the offender. But okay. Yes, probably I was doing something and enabling that behavior. Maybe whatever it was, maybe let me say he was violent and he would abuse me. Probably I was enabling that bad behavior, and probably I would say when he would do it. And then when he comes back, because it's usually like a cycle, then he comes back and, he doesn't even apologize, and we just pick,
And we keep going.
And we keep going.
So we'll do it again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I realized, the first time I told my friend, now I even stopped saying, because then, so there are things I did that contributed to that. Or sometimes, and I know this is interesting, sometimes I will find myself being very passive aggressive, which is not solving the issue. So I'm being very passive aggressive in this person who is being violent, but I'm, so I do that, and then he becomes violent, and so the cycle just keeps going. Well, and let me not say that there's anything anyone does to deserve to be meted violence on, but there are things I can do to provoke. Sometimes there are things, I'm not saying then it justifies to be abused, but if I know if this person is this way, sometimes it's just better not to, just to find if that's what we're saying, if it's living, rather than we're here antagonizing each other. So just to know what was my part. Probably, we can be career women and we can get carried away. Personally, I know like that happens when I have this project. I can get really buried in it and forget everything in my home. Yes, and I know I'm guilty, and I know we are many of us. So I would, these are things I usually have to keep in check and remind myself, so it's important to that, so that then you don't go into another relationship and replay, the same script, different cast.
All right. Yes. Well, thank you so much. And I'm sure we've picked so much in regards to the same. Like I said, there's always so much to discuss about this, but then again, time would not allow us. But yes, we've picked key lessons. Faith Gishanga, Esther, thank you so much for the great insights, and we look forward to have you some other time as we expound more on issues that affect family. But importantly, we want to cross over to the Milimani Law Course, where Governor Muthomi Njuki is being, of course, that is appearing in court in regards to draft cases leveled against him yesterday, having been grilled the EACC for the better of an entire day. And of course, we had our reporter, Lauren Nanok, following up on the same, bringing on board updates as of yesterday. And yes, assuring to us that the governor will be appearing in court. So I'll be leaving you with live pictures of the same, even as the country continues to battle with matters of graft. Most of the governors being implicated, or most of the governors being, of course, alleged to have conducted graft in their respective counties. The aspect of involving family is one thing that is also playing out. So we have the live pictures now from the Milimani Law Courts, and we take you through the same as we follow up on this case closely to get to it and to know what it is that deliberations will have from the courts. Most of the people have argued that corruption has been shrinked at the level of the courts, because normally we do not get answers once these individuals get to court. But reality is that yes, it's a whole different according to them. They argue that it's because there's never, presentation of watertight evidence that would be good enough to implicate these individuals. So we follow up on this closely, and we get to update you on the same. Let's cross over. Yes, as you can see, the vehicle that the governor is in, and any minute or any moment from now he will be presented in courts, and we get the deliberations on the same according to the proceedings and according to what it is that the judges will declare of the same. Remember that yesterday he appeared before the EACC, and the entire day we had our reporter Lauren Nanok following up on the same, just to see whether there will be any deliberations on the same. So I'll leave you with those pictures, and you can be sure that we'll be giving you the updates of the same as and when they get to hit the editorial desk. My name is Linda Lela. It was great having you again. Let's keep it TV47. Thank you so much once again. Faith, I've treated you to some bit of news, right? All right. Thank you.